So you're getting outline. A lot of these books are Wicca 101. They just keep repeating the same stuff over and over again. And I'm not knocking it. We need it. I think it's important to have as much information out there as possible. But again, they're all primers, and they're wonderful. Don't get me wrong; they're all primers.
Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Welcome to Witchcraft, What the Books Don't Tell You. This is a special broadcast in addition to my Magic, Witchcraft, and the Occult series that I have on my YouTube channel. And I wanted to touch on this particular topic because there is a lot of missing information. And I don't know if it's being done on purpose, if it's a part of the whole secret thing, you know, that I remember getting in trouble back in the mid-2000s when I'd post stuff on Facebook, and not Facebook, back then it was MySpace. And I used to have some hardcore witches get mad at me for sharing information that should only be shared with the initiated, and there's a place for that, and we'll get into that. But as far as your basic individual or solitary practice, and or with a group or not, there are some key issues that are not being talked about enough, in my opinion, these days, and a lot of the Wicca, witchcraft, and paganism, and magic books that are readily available to the public. And I felt this would be a good time for me to share some of that. I wish I had the time to cover everything, but I'll do as much as I can in the short time that we have. So let me start off by starting this talk today by defining what I believe modern witchcraft is. The only thing I can share with you, and actually let me do a little, what do we call a disclaimer, the opinions on this talk are my opinions. They're from my experience. I've been practicing since 1990, 91, so we're talking about 30-something years, and this is my experience, and other people might have other traditions, other people might have different styles, and whatnot. None of it's wrong. Not all of it's right, but whatever works for you, take it with you, and if it doesn't work, just leave it here on the show or during the broadcast. With that being said, let me start by saying that I believe that what we have going on out there today in the world of modern witchcraft is there's a lot of confusion and in the way that people approach it. And what I mean by that is we think of, at least for me, and again, this is just me. I remember growing up, I was always enchanted by witchcraft and the mystical and the occult. And ever since I was a little boy, I remember going into the library and, going into the occult section and hiding in the corner and reading all the books that I can. Very curious as to witchcraft. I thought it was just so cool. And, as a little kid, growing up on Bewitched and later Charmed, you have this idea of casting spells and turning people into animals and, manifesting a car in 2 seconds, the Hollywood version. So when I picked up my first book, and my first book that I ever did pick up was Scott Cunningham's Wicca for the Solitary Practitioner. Excellent book. I still recommend it to this day. Scott's been gone for over a decade, but the book is still out there, and it's a great way to get started. If you're looking for something for a foundation, that's a great book. It covers a little bit of everything and clarifies a lot of stuff. And that's what happened with me. It clarified a lot of stuff. I was like, well, this is not at all what I thought. So what is it? What is modern witchcraft that we know of, that we see in Barnes and Noble or on Amazon or whatnot? What it really is, and I think people don't seem to understand this, and some of you looking at me might be saying, why is this Native American looking guy talking about witchcraft? Is because it's the same thing. Witchcraft, shamanism, Santeria, all of these are merely indigenous practices, pre-Christian, pre-Judeo-Abrahamic religion practices. That's all they are. Witchcraft and the magic and or the religion of witchcraft that we see here in the United States, or mostly around the world, especially within the world of Wicca, is merely just European and Northern European indigenous religion. That's all it is. It's the same thing as Native American and United States. In Northern Europe, Wicca is the reincarnation, the modern reincarnation of ancient Celtic, Nordic, and other Northern European traditions that are being re-energized and have been re-energized quite a bit. A little bit taken from, every European tradition and kind of thrown into the mix. Most of what we see in witchcraft is eclectic. I know my practices vary from Buddhist to Taoist to Native American to Celtic. And so the idea of witchcraft being this one thing, it's not. There is no right way, there is no wrong way. It's a little bit of everything. The bottom line is, for me, the bottom line is to do our best to connect with our higher self, and I'll get into that at another time. But witchcraft is a tool for that. Modern witchcraft came about like in the 50s, perhaps, with Gerald Gardner. He went on TV, he released a book, got the laws changed, and it became more popular and whatnot. But that's not what we're here about. We're here to talk about things that aren't in the book. And actually, a lot of the stuff isn't in the books. The fact that it's just native, indigenous, magical, spiritual practices of Northern Europe. So who can be a witch? Do you need to be Celtic? Do you need to be Northern European? Do you need to be Greek? Do you need to be Native American? For me, witchcraft, again, is really a tool. I mean, the reality of it is, for me, when I got involved in shamanism and I had my shamanic vision quest, I met the emissaries of light, and I had my, my third eye blew up and everything, which you can read about in my book, The Book of One. It was very difficult for me to align with any spirituality. Yes, I was dabbling at the time. Back in the early 90s, I was already dabbling in witchcraft. I had been drawn to especially Egyptian-style magic and Kemetic tradition and spirituality growing up my entire life. And, of course, I studied shamanism and went through the whole process of doing the vision quest. But with that being said, after the vision quest, I realized that none of it really fit for me. That it was very strange for me to be able to ground what I had learned in that vision quest. It was very difficult for me to ground what I had learned and apply it in my day-to-day spiritual practice. Because here I was, with all this awareness, I had that so-called nirvana moment, and then to be able to bring it down to earth and utilize it on a regular basis. And I found that witchcraft was the closest thing to the real, I don't want to say the true religion, but for me, it was the closest thing as far as a tool to utilize the practice. Now, why was that? Well, the first thing that most people will notice when they learn about witchcraft in the modern books, you learn about the goddess principle. That was fantastic for me. I was like, wow, I grew up Catholic. I loved Virgin Mary. Here it was a practice where I could acknowledge a divine feminine. I was into Isis, worshipped Isis unknowingly most of my life. So it was great to see something that, acknowledged the goddess and why there was so much emphasis in it. Many people ask, why so much emphasis on the goddess? Because we have been... It might be political and it might be energetic, but the reality of it is, energetically speaking, on the planet, we have been dealing with patriarchal, male, God force energy. No matter what your tradition, the world for the last 5 to 7 years has been male. It hasn't really elevated the female. The female has been suppressed And here is this emphasis on elevating that divine feminine principle, which is extremely important. Again, it might be political or energetic, but for me, I really connected with that. So what we're going to find in these books is we're going to see that. We're going to see an emphasis on the goddess. Maybe not exactly explaining why. There is a wonderful book out there. I wish I could remember the name of the author. And it's just called The Goddess. And it is a kind of a psychological approach. It comes to it in the form of psychology, not magic, not history, dealing with the anima and the animus and Carl Jung's collective unconscious theory. If you're into magic, if you're into witchcraft, if you're into pagan spirituality, really pick up a Carl Jung primer and learn about how Carl Jung described the collective unconscious and universal archetypes, and it will really help you on your path. Again, something they don't talk about in the books. A lot of the times, they don't mention collective archetypes. They don't mention the anima, the animus, and how to connect with the inner divine feminine, the inner divine masculine. So a primer on Carl Jung is very helpful for that as well. This book called The Goddess. I wish I could remember the author's name. I bought it in the 90s in Barnes & Noble in Tampa, Florida, so God only knows where it would be. Another wonderful, great book that I want to touch on is Buckland's Complete Guide to Witchcraft. I did it. It's a workbook. You can do the workbook. It's fantastic. But remember, it is Sia Wicca, which is a Saxon, revivalist Saxon path, and that's Buckland's path, or was at the time. He was into the Saxon tradition. So you'll be learning Saxon tradition. Scott Cunningham, I think he's a little bit more universal, maybe leaning more into the Celtic. Great book. Wonderful book, and still a wonderful author, Starhawk. What I love about Starhawk is that she does throw activism in it quite a bit. And for me, she's another sacred activist. I will say, though, that the work that she does is very beneficial and needed, and it is a piece of the bigger puzzle. What's not in the book is the actual consciousness aspect. For me, I've read several of her books, and they're all fantastic, and I highly recommend all of them. But it was lacking in the consciousness aspect. A lot of modern writers, Margot Adler, Selena Fox, and whatnot, really touch on the revival of the divine feminine spiritual path, which is a big, big part of it and a necessary part. But going back to what I was talking about, going back to why I was drawn to the particular path, for me, it was about the magic. Not necessarily the religion, not necessarily the study of, but for me, it was about the magic and how to perform the magic with some type of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, results, positive results coming from it. So they don't teach you that, and most books won't teach you that. They'll teach you the spell, they'll teach you how to do a ritual, they'll give you the A, B, and C's of it, but they don't tell you what's in between the lines, what's between A and B. There's a lot of stuff in between A and B. What's between B and C? There's a lot of stuff in between B and C. So you're getting outline. A lot of these books are Wicca 101. They just keep repeating the same stuff over and over again. And I'm not knocking it. We need it. I think it's important to have as much information out there as possible. But again, they're all primers. And they're wonderful. Don't get me wrong. They're all primers. We need primers. Now, what I have seen over my last... and again, this is just my opinion. It's not, it's not etched in stone as truth or anything. This is my truth and my observations and my perceptions is that, in my experience, oh, yes, I saw someone post something about Joseph Campbell. Please, The Power of Myth, please, get that. Watch it. I think it's out on Netflix right now. The Power of Myth with Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyers. It really solidified and clarified a lot of the teaching and understanding of it for me. And actually, I've been watching it again. I love it. I love it. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but if it's not, find it somewhere else. Now, for me, again, disclaiming for me, when I started on Scott Cunningham's book for the solitary practitioner, again, it was like 90, 91 or whatever. And I remember getting ready to do my first full moon ritual, and I'm like, this is going to be amazing. You know, it's just going to be like sparks everywhere and, you know, flames bursting and, you know, God, it sounds like a Star Spangled Banner. But, you know, I just was expecting this huge, like, shift in consciousness, or this huge, like, you know, I don't know, the goddess coming out of the sky and manifesting on the altar or something like that. And a couple of my friends at that time, we were forming a coven. I didn't even know it, but the people I was working with at the time, we do the full moon ritual. And it was like, okay, well, we cast the circle like the book told us. We invoked the elements. We invoked the god. We invoked the goddess. We did the chants. We did the cakes and ale. I never quite understood that. We did all of it, and nothing happened. I was like, well, we did everything according to how the book said. Why don't I feel different? Why don't I sense any change? Or, you know, how come I didn't see, you know, candelabras floating through the house or something like that? So right there, I knew something was up. I was like, okay, I understand. I was just a kid. I was like 22 or something like that. And first time I ever did it. And again, I just can't help but remember feeling so let down by what didn't happen. And by the way, before I even did that first full moon ritual, I read that book back and forth, forward and back, probably 3 or 4 times, and then waiting for the full moon, I just kept reading it. Me and my friends were studying. And when we finally did it, it was like, okay, well, we went through the motions. And that's exactly the point I'm getting to here. The books will take you through the motions, but it's your responsibility to find out what is in between. Again, what's in between step 1 and step 2. It is your responsibility to do the, I don't want to say the extracurricular, but the peripheral practices that are not mentioned. One of them being meditation. Yeah, I talk about it all the time. There's no witchcraft without meditation. There's no witchcraft without learning to focus. There's no witchcraft without learning to concentrate. There's no witchcraft without understanding your emotions. There's so much more work that goes on than just reading a ritual and walking around a circle and doing a goddess chant. I mean, unless that's enough for you, which is fine. You know, not everyone needs to be a high priest or a high priestess. I understand that. But if you really want to be a witch, what is a witch? For me, the word witch, you know, I think it's Campbell and Gardner and several others have mentioned how Wicca means wise one. So the wise one does the inner work. It's not dressing up like a witch. It's not going to every pagan festival in the region. It's not about attending every single class. It's not about role-playing. It's not about looking like a witch or looking like a goth or acting like Prue from Charmed. It's not. There's role-playing and there's practice. There's lifestyle and then there's spiritual path. I love pagan lifestyle. You'll notice I'm not really too much of a hippie pagan anymore as far as like the way I dress. Yeah, I like to wear black, but beside that, I'm not all frou-frou out there. I live in the real world. I work very hard, working on consciousness and teaching seminars and conferences and classes and shows and writing. So I don't have the oomph to try to be more eccentric than I already am. But that's fine. There is a lifestyle in paganism. People like to dress up a lot. People like to wear the different jewelry and go to all the festivals, and that's all well and important. It creates community. Community is a big part of it. But then there's spiritual path and spiritual practice. I say this all the time. If you want to practice witchcraft, you have to practice witchcraft. You can buy all the books in the world. You can buy all the black cool robes and hoods and all the silver jewelry and all, you know, go to all the pagan festivals. But if you're not doing the practice, and what I mean by the practice is the inner work, you're not practicing. Practicing your lines from a Gardnerian ritual is not practice. That's practicing, that's learning your lines. Reading a scripted ritual is not practicing, it's reading a scripted ritual. The work goes on the inside, and they don't tell you that. All of this stuff is important, yes. Learning the rituals are important. Understanding the dynamic within the ritual is very important. But memorizing, I mean, I don't know. My opinion, memorizing is not as important as studying and practicing. And I'm going into that now. So what's the difference between religious path and magic? Now let's clarify here. A lot of the books teach the religious path, and that's, again, very important. Learning, understanding the history of it, understanding the different traditions, understanding how to cast a circle, how to do ritual, understanding the dynamics within the ritual, understanding the holidays, the Sabbaths. You know, why do we do that? Because, well, I know why I do it. I'll get into that in a second. So a lot of people, actually, I remember there was a very famous, I'm not going to say her name live on the air, but a very famous high priestess in South Florida who I remember contacting her, and I wanted to be a student of hers. This is back in the late 80s, early 90s. I wanted to be her student. And she said, just be aware, I don't teach magic, I just teach the religion. And that really stuck with me. And I was like, what does she mean by that? And it wasn't until 10, 15 years later that I understood the difference. So yeah, there's a difference between the magic, which for me is the consciousness, and the religion, which is, you know, the rituals and the dressing up and all that stuff. So there is a little bit of a difference. Again, no right and no wrong. But they don't tell you that in the book. At least they didn't tell in the books that I read. So why study? I said study and practice are the two most important things. I hope I have enough time here to get into this before the commercial break. I probably don't, but let me just define what I mean by that. There are two important aspects, studying and practicing. Now, we study to learn what the elements are, what the symbols mean. We study to learn what the equinoxes mean, what the solstices mean. We study to understand basically it's about learning the symbolism. It's about learning what this symbol means, you know, learning what this symbol means, you know, it's understanding the energy behind the particular symbols. We study to learn the names of the different gods and goddesses and what they represent and the energy that they represent. We study to learn how to focus, how to meditate. It's the how-to. Studying is the how-to and the what. And again, when we're talking about studying, please, I can't emphasize enough. Joseph Campbell, Power of Myth. Joseph Campbell, Power of Myth. Will cover 50% of what you need to know when it comes to deities and mythologies and energies and practices and rituals. So studying, that's very important. Studying the elements, studying God, studying the different symbols, the colors, the chakras. You know, it's all a map. And what happens, it's almost like studying mathematics, and actually that's how it came to me one day. I was already in it full force for, I started in like 89, so let's say I was studying for like 5 years. I ended up going back to college in Miami, and during an algebra class, I'm like, why am I learning this? I hate algebra. You know, I hate math. And I was always good at it, I just didn't like it. And I remember driving home one day from Miami-Dade. I went to Miami-Dade College in downtown Miami, and driving home on I-95, it clicked. All of those symbols, all of the learning about the chakras and the colors and all that, it almost appeared to me like a mathematical equation, that this plus this equals that. And if I add that variable in, then I'll get that result. And I got the alchemy aspect of it. So all of the studying, all of understanding the energies of Isis, understanding the energies of the color red, understanding the energy of an amethyst crystal, all of these things put together create a specific energy. Everything is energy. Let's get that out there now. you'll understand that everything is energy and everything has a energetic imprint to it. So learning all of this, boom, it hit me. This is the alchemy part. This is the alchemical part. So why do we study? We study to understand the alchemy of the spiritual practices. Practice. To practice witchcraft, you have to practice witchcraft. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna have things that never happen, that never manifest. You're gonna do spells that backfire on you. You're going to invoke things at the wrong time or not get them out soon enough. I've had pipes burst. I've had my altar catch on fire. All of these things. I'm not proud of it, but it was a badge of understanding how not to do something. I remember one time we were working with the undines or the water elements, and boom, the next day the whole floor was flooded. We didn't do something right. Same thing with fire, water, air, all of these elements. You want to understand them and you want to learn to respect them. But anyway, back to the practice. Write down your results. I mean, I feel it's very important that you keep a magical log and a magical diary. I'm pretty sure some of these books talk about that. Write down what you did. A couple weeks later, write down the results of what manifested, what didn't manifest, what worked, what didn't work. That will basically start you on creating your Book of Shadows. I don't want to get into Book of Shadows today, though. Or your file of shadows like I have on my computer. Practicing meditation. Practicing focus. So remember, studying and practicing. Two of the most important things. What about the ritual garb and the tools? The same thing. Same thing. They don't tell you. Well, I believe it was Buckland perhaps that said it best. He said this is to create the persona of yourself in the magical circle. When you're wearing your robes, when you're wearing that jewelry, that garb, whatnot, you shift your consciousness. And you're shifting into your persona that is not the day-to-day, mundane, non-mystical, magical person. So yeah, I mean, I don't always wear ritual, but I always wear something that's special that I would only wear during a ritual, even if it's just I have a big giant brass pentagram, actually it's hanging on my wall with Isis, that I wear only for ritual because it helps me to transform and alter my state of consciousness. And the same thing with the tools. Some people are like, well, why are the tools so important? There is symbology behind the tools. The atame, the wand, the broom, all of those things have a specific energy and symbol. Why is it important to chant? Why is it important to use these symbols? All of these, and this is one of the big keys that perhaps are not mentioned, all of these symbols, all the tools, all the garb, all of that is to help you alter your state of consciousness, shifting you from the day-to-day to the mundane. As a matter of fact, if those of you who have studied, especially ritual, you'll notice that in many instances within a ritual, the wording always says, this is a place that is not a place, on a time that is not a time. You know, we're creating a completely separate space. And that space is actually in your head, that head space. So, the biggest key that I find that is missing in all of this is the fact that there is not enough emphasis in the in the visualization of what's going on. These books really don't focus on visualization and directing the energy. They talk about directing energy, but there's never really the how to direct energy. They talk about visualizing. There's never really the how to visualize or when to visualize. So we're going to focus on that for the rest of the show. I'm going to talk about focus, concentration, and emotion. Again, these are things that are touched on, but are never really explored in depth in all of these books. I think, you know, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking maybe the publishers don't want them to put this stuff in there because it's not like, ooh, it's not exciting. I need to adjust this. Maybe they're not, you know, maybe it doesn't sell enough books when you're talking about boring stuff like meditation and concentration and understanding emotion. But I'll tell you right now that visualization, concentration, and focus are what's going to make your work work. So let's start with casting the circle. Let me see if I have something here for that. Let's start with casting the circle. Of course I don't. That'll do for now. When we're casting a circle, what are you told? You're told to create an outline. Usually, what do they say? About 9 feet in diameter. So a lot of us get very elaborate. You know, sometimes I would create a salt circle. I used to work with a wonderful priestess in South Florida. She would literally outline the circle in flower petals. It was amazing. I mean, she spent like $30 in flowers every ritual. And we'd have flower petals all around the circle. But they're telling us to create a physical circle, right? So a lot of times we're told to create a physical space, put the altar in the middle, put your tools in the middle, and then go through the mechanisms of casting the circle. What they don't tell you is how to cast the circle. How many of you who have been practicing for a while now, basically, okay, so you walk into the circle, maybe you do a grounding meditation, you know, the whole roots into the ground. You pick up your atame and then you just point the tip around the circumference of the circle. That's basically what I've seen, and that's actually what I did for the first probably 5 or 10 years. There's much more to it than that. So I'm going to do a little meditation with you, and I'm going to, actually we did something like this a couple of weeks ago, but we're going to take it to the next level. I'm going to show you exactly how to cast a circle. So let's take a deep breath. I want you to do a slight meditation with me ever so quickly. Just close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose, filling your belly. And gently exhale. Again, taking a deep breath in through your nose, filling your belly. And gently exhale. Okay, so we're going to recall, whether you've done it in the past or not, let's imagine that we've done the grounding exercise. We've sent the roots into the earth, the roots from our body that went down our legs, into the crust, down to the core, wrapped around the core, melded with the core, and we drew the energy back up into our belly, into a ball of light in our belly, right? So this is just an outline version. There's a longer version on my channel you can watch later if you want. And then we're going to do of course, connecting with the source of all things, the goddess energy, the sky god energy, whatever it is, that we see a stream of light going out the top of our head. We're sending it up, up, up to the depths, the infinite depths of the universe, as far as it can go, to the source of all creation, where all the light of all light comes, and that light melds with our energy, and we draw that energy down from the heavens, down through the universe, down to the top of our head. And it connects with that ball of light in the middle of our belly. Now remember, that ball of light in the middle of your belly is also connected to the earth energy, rooted in the earth. The energy cycling down through the core, up your legs, melding with the ball in your belly, and going back down to the core. The same thing with the ball of light that you brought down is going up the center of your chest, up the top of your head, and melding. So now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to put your right arm down to your side, just let it hang down. And seeing that ball of light in your belly, let it get bigger and let it get stronger. See it spinning and all the energy getting brighter and brighter. And I'd like you to pull, using your mind or using your left hand, pull a little stream of light toward your right shoulder, pulling that little energy stream up your right shoulder and allowing it to go down your arm. Close your hand in a fist, a loose fist, and let the energy go down your arm and begin to pull in your right palm with your hand closed. And again, feeling that energy in your belly, going up to your right shoulder, going down your right arm, and allowing it to pull. And now stick your pointer finger out and let the energy come out of the tip of your finger. You may feel a sensation at the tip of your finger. This is your magical energy. This is your chi. This is the energy that will go out the tip of your atame if you're using it. If you have an atame in your right hand, you would direct it out the tip of your atame. If you're using a wand, you would direct it out the tip of the wand. But right now, we can just use our finger, and you can use your finger instead of an atame or a wand. And then this is how you would trace the circle, sending this energy, this light energy, this earth and heaven melded energy, and you direct it to the circumference of your ritual circle. But at the same time, so let's direct your finger down, point it in one direction. You can have your eyes open or closed at this point. Point it down at the ground, but as it touches the ground, visualize that it's not only touching the horizontal part of the ground, it's going underneath you. It's going up and over you. And you're creating an arc of light around you. So as you begin to go clockwise and create this circle, you're not just creating a circle, you're creating a sphere of energy. We have the land right here, or whatever, the ground. You're touching it at the rim of the circle. The energy is going down underneath you and going up and over you. So as you're going and creating a circle, the energy is creating a dome above you and a dome underneath you. You are in an orb of protective light. That is how you contain the energy you raise during a ritual. When we talk about the cone of power, when you're raising that energy, I mean, the metaphysics of it just makes common sense. You have a dome that contains the energy. And when you're ready to release it, you open the orb of light and it all goes rushing out to do its intended purpose. This is what they don't teach you. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about visualization, focus, energy. It's all about energy. It's not about reciting words or, you know, getting high or buzzed before the ritual or whatever it is, which I'm against. I mean, if you want to alter your state with one beer, that's fine, or take one puff, but you don't want to party too much when you're doing the work to create a space to contain energy that you're going to raise. Again, to each his own, I don't judge. I'm just saying for me. I've done both. I've partied too much and not enough. There's got to be a happy medium. But anyway, again, creating a circle, allowing that energy that you've grounded yourself into the earth. You've drawn the energy down from above. It's a sphere of light. And that sphere of light in your belly is where you're going to draw that energy from for all your practice. When you are... Okay, so that's just creating the ritual space, creating a circle. Let's move on to the elements. I call upon the watchtowers of the east and the elements of air, fire, blah, 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 blah. Okay. It's great that you know the words. It's great that you follow the Masonic tradition, because that's Freemasonic, believe it or not. Another thing people don't tell you, all of those rituals in most of those books are borrowed from Gardner or inspired from Gardner, and Gardner borrowed that from the Freemasons. The Freemasons used the watchtowers, so do the Wiccans. Freemasons call upon the elements, so do the Wiccans. That's all fine and dandy, but be aware of what you're doing and where it comes from. I don't use the watchtowers. I don't need it. I'm like, whatever. What the hell is a watchtower? Really? I mean, really, what is a watchtower? It's some Freemasonic tradition that someone came up with, and they've been doing it for hundreds of years. For me, I'm very happy not invoking. I do not invoke anymore. I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to be calling things into my house that I have no control over. I evoke. I evoke air. There is air within me. There is air within every breath. Air is oxygen. Oxygen is going through your blood. You have air in you. You don't need to be calling air. You already are air. Same thing with fire. Fire is the blood. It's the heat that we generate. If you want to work with elementals, that's one thing. But I'm talking about the elements. There's no reason to have to invoke it. It's already within you. Give yourself the power. You are the magical one. You are the powerful one. The earth, the air, the fire, the water. It's all already within your body. But when we're doing it, and when we're reading it in the books, it's always outside of us. I think that's not doing us any favors. We already have it within us. When you're doing your elements, or when I do my elements, I look at the particular direction. The words are whatever words. I could say bippity boppity boob. The secret is, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? Have you focused on the element of air? Are you focused on... I utilize the color yellow. Yellow helps me think of the element air. So I will feel a breeze. I will visualize a breeze of air hitting me in the face. I'll visualize the color yellow, but I'm going through the motions within me. I'm not just saying the words. It's the point I'm trying to make. If you're just going through the motions, you're just going through the motions. You can memorize as many words as you want. It's not going to really bring that element of air into your ritual space. Same thing goes with all the other elements. Gods and goddesses. Do we want to invoke things that may not even want to be here? And what are your ideas of gods and goddesses? Are they entities like the Christian God that's always watching over everything and, you know, you know what I'm saying? Is the goddess just another version of the Christian sky god? Is she just another version of Yahweh? Is she like this disembodied entity that's floating around and running around to every ritual and joining you in every ritual? Or is she a metaphor for a specific energy and frequency? Are you invoking an idea of this perfect goddess? Are you evoking and aligning with the specific frequency of nature and evoking it and bringing it into manifestation within your circle? Again, role-playing versus the real magic. Doing the work versus reading the words. When I evoke or call the goddess, draw down the moon, yes, of course I use the imagery of a goddess. Of course I use the energy and the vibration of the story of that character, that deity. But for me, it's about the frequency, the loving frequency. I work a lot with Isis, obviously. For me, it's about that mother, that feeling, that nurturing energy, feeling that magical power, because she's a goddess of magic and wisdom. So I'm evoking the energy, the magic, the wisdom. I'm evoking that energy into my circle. And hopefully when I'm working with a priestess, she's invoking it into her body. Drawing down the moon is merely evoking that energy into one individual, and that person emulates that vibration, emulates that frequency to share with the rest of the circle, the people within the circle, and represents that particular frequency of energy in your rite, your ritual. So are we playing Dungeons and Dragons? Or are we aligning with particular frequencies like grown-ups, like powerful human divine beings that we are, aligning with the frequencies of the universe to bring them into our space? Not talked about in the books. How much time do I have? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So we've cast the circle properly with the right energy, the right frequency, aligning and attuning with the particular frequency of the earth and the sky. We created our sacred space, our sacred sphere. We've evoked the energies of the four quarters, the elements and whatnot. And going back just a little bit, as far as the watchtowers, I mean, I don't mean to be too snooty about that, and I didn't mean that at all. I have an issue with patriarchal religion. And Freemasonry is very patriarchal, so I really don't like any of that energy in my work. So if that works for you, fine. But as far as like the watchtowers themselves, having a guardian at the quarter, I'm okay with that. And I will, on occasion, call upon the guardians of the West or the guardians of the East, but they're not allowed in my circle. They have to stay at the border. They stay outside and protect from the outside. I don't want them in my space. I don't know what they're bringing in. I'm very aware of every piece of energy in that circle, as so should you. Don't be evoking willy-nilly or invoking willy-nilly. All right, so we got the deities, we got the father, the mother, the elements, and the circle. So what's next is the actual spell. Raising the energy. At this point in the ritual, you're going to want to raise the energy. You're going to do your spell. So think about your spell. Hopefully, by this point, you've learned about symbols, you've learned about colors, you've learned about deities, and you've learned about visualization, and you already have your spell in mind. Not only did you have a spell in mind, you've already done a divination to make sure that spell is not going to harm anyone. How many of you do divination before you do a spell? If you haven't, please start. Even if it's a simple 3-card spread, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? We always want to be a little bit careful that we're not going to be setting something loose that's either going to come back and bite us in the butt, or is going to end up hurting somebody or imposing on someone else's free will. And yeah, some books will tell you to do divination before a spell. So here we are in the ritual. We're getting ready to do our spell. Let's say, I'm just going to do an easy one. Let's say I'm doing a spell for world peace. So what represents peace? The dove, olive branch, a rose quartz, maybe Venus, goddess of love. I don't know. So bringing in all these symbolic energies into that spell is something I would do, or hopefully my group would do. We would have the particular crystal, the particular candle color, the particulars, whatever they might be, that align with the frequency of the outcome of the spell that we're going to do. So we do the spell, we've got all the tools, the colors, the deities. Well, what is next? It's the visualization. What is it going to look like? If you cannot visualize what the outcome is going to be, you're not going to have an outcome. Think about it. In your everyday life, your mundane life, whether it's something positive or negative, let's say you're worrying about something. Well, most human beings, it's easier to worry and have that manifest because we're so used to that. But let's say you're worrying about getting into a car accident. Oh my God, I'm going to get into a car accident. Oh my God, I'm going to get into a car accident. Oh my God, I can just see it. I'm going to see it. I can, you know, we've all done it. We've all done it. We all got this. I can see it. I can see how it's going to happen. The same thing goes with any type of magic. The other stuff is kind of subconscious, but this is consciously directing your focus and your energy. A spell within your ritual is focusing your energy, and I'm going to be out of time, darn. Make sure to visualize, see it clearly what you want. I'll continue this. I will. I love you, everybody. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you soon. Remember to visualize, remember to focus, remember to study. Find a good teacher. Oh, I do tutor, by the way. If you'd like to book a tutoring session with me, you're more than welcome to. Go to bernardalvarez.com. I love you. Have a good